Hello and welcome to the STCfit Learning Podcast. I'll be your host today. My name's Ben Scott. I'll be joined by Jason Galea. Thanks for joining us on our way to create 1 million positive outcomes for personal training clients by 2030. The podcast is brought to you by @STCfit Learning, a page created to upskill and educate PTs and gym nerds. Also brought to you by @STCfit, and that's a place for all your online and in-person personal training needs. If you enjoyed today's episodes, please give us a share and tag on the Instawebs. You can tag @STCfit, @STCfit Learning, @BenScottSC, and @JasonGalea PC. Hope you enjoy the show.
Go down here, and then he's like, then you'll get on the highway, you can really open her up. And then like, as soon as I did, I was like, oh, I'm not leaving without this guy.
That's so good.
Sales 101. It's like, because I was just going for a look, right?
And I love that your partner was fully endorsing it.
Yeah, she was like, don't, because I went to look at a car. She's like, don't get those cars, this shit. Get this one.
That's so cute.
I'm like, and like, it's just that she didn't even know what it was. She's just like, oh, it looks cool.
I
and
like the look of it.
yeah, it's got like,
It does look cool, to be fair.
it's got wireless charging. She's like, oh, that's awesome. Wireless charging. And there's like a little light when you open the door. She's like, oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
I'm like,
So they're not there doing.
little
They've
things.
appealed to both.
oh,
markets.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
great.
Don't
yeah.
worry about the twin turbo 6-cylinder.
Yeah,
in the front
yeah,
of it
yeah.
or
No.
anything.
Yeah, I
Just
said to him, like, no, this car's really fast. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Don't worry about it.
Red seats. She's like, ooh.
it's a nice color and it does nice stuff.
Yeah. It was just all the gimmicky stuff. She was
Yeah.
like, I'm in. So I'm like, okay, cool. If you're on board, I'm gonna see if I can make this work.
Yeah, 100%.
I love
I
it.
feel like Amy's actually the same. She's actually worse. So I'm trying to be the responsible one. She's like, just do it.
Yeah,
Just get it.
Steph was the same. I'm like, I'm just gonna look and start the 4-month process. I told myself.
Yeah.
3 days. Went to 2 dealerships and walked out with a car in the second one.
Just fast tracked it. That's fine.
Yeah. Well, I was like, new year, new me, new car.
That's why,
New
that's
year,
why
new car.
I haven't been to look at that Genesis
Yeah.
yet. Because I'm like, if I sit in it,
Yeah,
it's coming out.
I know how. I even told myself, I'm like, it's highly likely I'm getting a car because it's like I just know what happens.
Yeah.
So you're not going there unless you.
So, yeah,
You
was
want
it
it.
any competition? Or
I went to BMW.
Yep.
And I looked at a brand new car because that's 2 years old, but it's done like 17,000 Ks.
Nothing.
And they just like wouldn't come to the party on like giving me an offer unless
Yeah.
they're like, oh, I'm only going to give you an offer if you take the car home today. I was like, man, I just fucking step foot in here for the first time. I'm like, that doesn't, I haven't been anywhere else.
Yeah.
And then I took it for a test drive, whatever. And then it was just weighing up. I'm like, this car's brand new. This one's not. This one's an AMG. This one's like not. It's not an M series. And then I was just like, and then she was like, no, like no one gets BMWs. Michael's got one. She's like, don't get a BMW. I was like, okay. So then I was like, fuck.
BMWs are sick, but they're like a more sensible version of sick. It's like,
Yeah, well, like I think once you get the thing with Beam is like once you get to like the competition like models, it's like they're fucking animals.
Yeah, if you actually get
Yeah.
a full spec M,
Yeah,
but they don't have, like Audi has the S range.
yeah,
Then the AMG has like your step of
yeah.
AMG.
They have the
Yeah, the
63 and the
63.
Not the
43.
stupid-
So
They
it's
don't,
like,
they don't bridge the gap.
Yeah, whereas
yeah.
BMW, they lack that mid.
yeah, that's true.
yeah. We compromise. You either get what I was looking at was like it's either full performance or you go luxury. There's nothing that's got semi. And even the one I looked at, I'm like, this isn't really that quick. Like the one I drove was like, it's not really that quick, and it's kind of luxury. So hard place to be in,
Sounds like you made the right decision. Though.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy.
Well,
Like,
that when I was sending you the videos I was watching on YouTube, all the reviewers were like, every time exactly like you drive the Merc, they just laugh.
yeah,
They're just like, this is just the most fun car.
it's so fun. It's all-wheel drive, which I had no idea. And then it's like got 287 kilowatt or some shit, and it's just such an obnoxiously fast car. And it's so loud too.
That's good.
Like
That's
so
what
it's
you
just
want.
Is that Churchy? Did Churchy?
No,
One of our
yeah,
members?
the
What did he have?
63.
Yeah.
And then his
Oh.
issue was like he couldn't come to the gym early in the morning anymore because his car would wake the whole family up.
Yeah.
So he'd start it and like the
yeah, it's definitely the gimmick factor. Like
Yeah.
they've
Yeah.
done that really well too. Like mine's the same. It's like
Yep.
the exhaust opens and then it closes. Like you can't. So it's just like, hey, let everyone know you start your car.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
my neighbors probably hate me too already.
I guess you don't buy it though to have like a quiet car. Do you?
Nah,
I agree.
you want to make a bit of an impact, don't you?
Yeah. That's hilarious. Oh man, the note on mine's good. I imagine like the 63 would just be ridiculous. Like,
And the best part of that, then he would come to the gym and
Yeah.
leave his wife with kids screaming.
hey, priorities, right? That's so good.
We're rolling.
Oh, we're rolling.
there we
Okay,
go.
Alright.
there you go. How much of that were we rolling? Like, I don't want to just sit first, like,
All
10
of-
minutes of
all-
banter was just about cars.
Yeah.
How picky I am at my cars.
Yeah, we're just talking about performance,
Yeah.
whether it's cars.
Yes.
I like it.
Pursuing
Hey,
high
you
performance.
know what?
It's all
always.
relative.
We're all built different.
Yeah, we're just creating AMGs.
Yeah.
Goals.
I like it.
Goals.
Not BMWs, unless someone already said that. Half the audience hates me now.
I was
I
going
know. We've really divided people.
I thought that, and I was like, do you really think half the audience drives a Beamer? They probably all want Mercs
Yeah,
anyway.
that's it. If you don't want one, if you don't want one now, you will.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Welcome back, boys.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
So we got Karl and Max back from the Performance Hub. We only had one episode in between.
Yeah,
During the
yeah. We've
holidays.
had a bit of scheduling issues.
Yeah.
Hard time of
Getting
year.
it. Yeah, it's busy. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well, Dean and Lizzie decided to move to the UK on
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
So that was a little
didn't
bit of
help.
a delay
How
in
dare they.
scheduling for that. I think we promised that Lizzie was the next episode, and it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're sorting out internet, I think, and then they'll be
Ready
back
to go.
in a few weeks. So yeah, I don't think we need to do too much introduction stuff.
Yeah,
If
everyone should
you
have
don't
an
know
idea.
who they are, Max has been on here 3 times now.
Yeah.
And yeah, 2 episodes ago we had both of you guys on.
Yeah.
So we'll just dive straight in.
Let's
Maybe
do it.
just before we go into the nuts and bolts of today, how's Christmas?
Mm.
It was good. A lot of family stuff, which was good, but planned out reasonably well. So not
Yeah.
too much running around. But by the end of it, I was still ready to, just
Get away from everyone.
100%.
Yeah.
Just- I'm trying to find a polite way to say that. Like, it's lovely to see everybody, but then it's lovely to not see
Not
anybody.
see anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty much the same. It's good to sort of take a bit of a deep breath and reload and go again.
Yeah.
2022 has been an absolute ripper start, though.
What are you guys like socially? Like, are you go out for a little bit and then get home and you're tired, or like, do you just eat it up, like just being out and
Yeah.
about?
Extrovert, introvert.
Probably more introverted, except I think Karl and I have the same problem. I get socially excited.
Yeah.
So, like,
Old
I'll be...
rubber arm.
Yeah, exactly. So, oh, no, we'll just, like, go for a little bit, but then I'll just get, sucked into the atmosphere, and then all of a
So
sudden it's like...
you
yeah.
got soft arms. They can be
100%,
twisted.
just
I
rubber
like
arm.
people like you.
Yeah. All right, go on. Where are we going?
Yeah. It's like, hey, I bet you I can make him stay.
Yeah.
And you're just
Yeah.
like,
Oh,
hey,
it's not hard.
I got a mate who's got jelly arms. Like, that's his nickname, pretty much.
Jelly arm, that's so
Yeah,
good.
so it doesn't matter where he goes. I'm like, you're not going home, and he's like, nah.
The best bit is because the whole time that you're out or wherever you are, he'd be talking it down so much, be like, no, I'm going home. 9 o'clock, I'm gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Houdining it. Next minute, doing rounds of espresso martinis.
I was
and
going to say
that's
the loosest one.
yeah.
I feel like you got to do one or the other. You either have to lock yourself in or actually Houdini. Because if you let people know you're going, it's like they're going to drag
Yeah.
you down.
Oh,
If you got
100%.
jelly arms, you just got to go without everyone
Yeah.
knowing. And then they're just like, oh, he's gone. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
100%. Because, every single person's going to wear me down. It's like, I'll say no to person 1, 2, but person 3 and 4, they're going to get me.
Yeah. 100%. You learn these things the hard way, though, don't you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
definitely. I don't have that problem. I'm just like, I'm usually the one twisting the arms. So
You do a bit of both, actually. You're either pushing the needle or it's just like,
I just leave.
Where the fuck did Jace go?
yeah. Well, I know the situation because I'm usually
know
the
how
one
it
doing
works.
it. Yeah. So I'm just like, I usually just like, oh, I'm going. I just leave.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which apparently isn't socially acceptable either. It's like, why does he
smoke
do
bomb.
that?
Did it at one of our Christmas parties, and I was like, oh, yes, there you go. And everyone else was like, oh, that was abrupt. It's like, no, he's just getting out of here before there's another round.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just that's what you have to do. You just
Yeah.
gotta, drop the smoke bomb and move. Don't break stride.
It's 9 p.m. and he's 1 drink away from 1 a.m. So
Yeah.
he's choosing to abort mission now.
100%.
Yeah.
And what's that saying? Nothing good happens after 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's very true.
Yeah. I'm the same. If I'm not gone by 9, it's
That's bad.
Strap yourself in.
Yeah. It's last one standing usually is the goal.
We're going to go out with the boys now, I think.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about athletic performance development.
Yep.
Specifically around personal trainers in, I don't want to say big box gyms, but just working with Gen Pop generally in a gym setting rather than like a specialist who works with, say, athletes or something like that.
Yeah.
So curious to know, like, we obviously came to you guys and said, like, hey, we want to do this in the course. We have no fucking idea what we're talking about, so we're going to do a lot less talking today. It's funny, Jay said before.
I'm going to do none after the intro.
Are we doing development, athletic development? I was like, yeah. He's like, I'm going to talk heaps today. So when we had that conversation, like, what went through your mind as to, like, this is how we need to come at it, and what's going to be involved for someone who's first thinking that idea of, I want to make people perform better?
That's a good question. I think for both of us, from a education point of view, something that we both really enjoy doing, and I think we do pretty well, is simplifying things and making it all kind of make sense to people. And that's probably because, I don't know about you, but you come out of uni, you think you have, like, the answer to the world's problems. Like, cool, I'll just go to page 44 of my textbook, and this is how you train people. And then you learn, like, none of that shit works in the real world, right? So what we're trying to do, what we thought when you messaged us, like, yeah, great, this is a really good opportunity to go, cool, here's all your concepts that we want you to understand, but here's how you actually do it.
Yeah.
And we kind of want to go and accelerate towards that doing part. That's probably the biggest thing I thought straight away. It's like, okay, cool, this is an opportunity to get a lot more hands-on and kind of break down some of this stuff, because I feel like the trend now in the industry is to overcomplicate, to kind of put yourself up on a bit of a pedestal. It's like, from our point of view, it's like, well, yeah, you can do that, but everyone's doing that. Yeah. How about we go the opposite way and go, cool, yeah, here's all these massive words, and hey, here's what it actually means when you're training a client. Yeah. Like, people will be like, oh, let's train the frontal plane. It's like, yeah, cool, just do side planks. Like, that's the kind of the analogy we're doing. Like, planes of motion, cool, here's what you actually do. And then hopefully people can go, if I'm working with somebody with a different goal, I can just go straight to my toolbox and select here. I don't really need to go down the rabbit hole every time I get a new client.
Yeah, I think that's really important too. Like, as someone who, just through becoming, like, the strength coach, you attract people that want to get stronger for their sport. So it's like starting to look through that lens and going to look for information. A lot of it is, like, really in-depth shit that and I don't have like the sports science background to initially to go into that sort of conversation. I was just like, fuck, this is a really, really big rabbit hole. And then you say things like that, like, training the frontal plane just means this, and you're like, okay. Like, I learnt that ages ago, never used it, and then someone overcomplicated it in their explanation and made it sound way more difficult than it was. And then I looked at my programming and I was like, I'm doing all that. Now I just need to know how to quantify it and structure it better. Yeah.
And I think obviously social media just magnifies that and doesn't help, because, you know, if you especially got like a young athlete or a newbie who's, you know, looking and scrolling through social media, even LeBron James, who's the GOAT, you know, he's doing stuff on Bosu balls and all this sort of stuff. And you're just like, well, that's not, you know, true athletic development. Yes, he's genetically gifted, and we're probably never going to get to that ceiling that he's got. But like Max says, we don't need to make him super complex. If anything, it's just like, the basics work, so we don't reinvent the wheel. We just make it spin a bit more efficiently.
What do you think stands out as, for personal trainers, the biggest obstacles working with someone who comes in and just says, I want to be a better athlete?
I think probably the biggest issue is probably a little bit of confusion around what does that mean and what does that mean to that person. I think that's a big one. I know we've talked about that a few times previously, but understanding what someone's goal is really, really important. Because someone saying, oh, yeah, I want to be more athletic. And then you'd be like, oh, cool. Obviously, we would all, the four of us, probably have a slightly different idea of what athletic means to us.
Just want to tie up my shoes.
Took the words out of my mouth.
Oh, really? So I'll put socks on without.
I love it.
Wash my own back.
Not with a stick.
I've accepted that that's not going to happen.
No, exactly. Like, it just depends, right? So I think that's probably one of the ones. One of the things that makes it a little bit more difficult. And one of the things we're doing in the course is, like in sports science or strength conditioning, it's called a needs analysis. But it's essentially just a way to break down what someone's goal is and figure out what do they need to actually be good at. And that's something that we want to teach people and give you a simple way to do it. So it's things like, okay, cool, how long does your client have to be able to perform the task for? From there, it's like, cool, we need to know how we need to train. Like, if you want to run a marathon, well, guess what? You're going to have to be able to do something for 3 to 4 hours. So that's important. Whereas, you know, if it's powerlifting, well, you probably don't need to do anything for 3 to 4 hours. And
except lay around on your phone.
Correct, yeah. And then it'd be things like, what range of motion do they need to actually get to? Cool, because then we need to train that. What planes of motion? How fast do they need to move? I think that's a pretty important one. Like, if somebody wanted to get good at, say, sprinting, for example, it's like, cool, doing really slow, heavy weights all the time. Even if you tick all the rest of the boxes, it's like your speed that you're moving isn't right. So it's not really going to move them closer to the goal. And I think, having that framework is going to be really, really helpful. Because a lot of it is just having a framework.
Yeah.
And probably jargon would be the last one as well. Like,
as you said, just the confusion. Like just the, And it's probably just that misconception that it needs to be drastically different. Like Max said, it's pretty much just reverse engineering whatever the goal is.
Yeah.
And to the point of the having the screening and assessment, probably, I guess, the only thing that's really different in that process on that framework is then, obviously, that's the hierarchy. We always will screen first, and then that'll allow us to delve into the assessments. But then probably the other one on top of that is looking at performance tests. And that's really specific to the athlete and what their sport is and the demands of their sport. So, obviously, like Max said, if, we've got a sprinter or we've got someone who, wants to improve their speed, then we're probably going to have to do some sort of speed test to get some baseline measures. Like, as simple as that sounds, like, we need to do that to understand that are they progressing towards that?
Yeah.
And that's just going to obviously drive motivation for the athlete as well.
So, in your experience, what percentage of people that you deal with are going to be actual athletes versus, like, come to you and say, like, I play this sport and this is the exact outcome that I want, versus I just want to be more athletic?
It's a really good question.
I don't want to really hurt everyone's feelings by telling them none of you are athletes. No. I think that's a good question. I think if you're working in a big box gym, or as a PT, I suppose, as opposed to working for a sports club where that performance outcome's going to be so far above, I think you need to accept that, yes, it's performance based, but it also needs to be tied into some other goals as well. Like, typically, anybody who hires a personal trainer is going to have some kind of body composition goal.
Yeah.
And in my experience, the performance goals sometimes come after, if that makes sense. Like, if you've had a client for 6 months, 12 months, cool, they've dropped 10 kilos, they feel great, they're leaner, they're getting stronger. That's when all of a sudden, because they've achieved that, they're probably looking, for like, what's the next goal? And then typically, like, we'll get people, hey, I'm going to go, like, hike the Kokoda Trail. It's like, oh, okay, cool. Or like, hey, I want to get really good at surfing, or hey, I want to do muscle ups, or whatever it is. But typically, in my experience, it comes after they've had that, like, initial win.
Yeah.
It's like, cool, what's next? And then they start. Yeah.
We have the same with powerlifters.
Yeah.
Like, national level powerlifters are like, but I want to look good.
Yeah. 100%.
It's like, I'm not going over to be a big fat powerlifter. I need to look good first. Yeah, and I think definitely in a health club environment, that's going to be the majority of the people that's going to come and approach you and want to work with you. I think I'm picturing, like, being on the gym floor circa, like, 2017. CrossFit was at its peak, and it was like everyone wants to be athletic, even if they didn't. Trainers decided that they should be.
Yep.
So it was like box jumps and clean and presses and all of these movements that obviously the person that was in front of them just wasn't actually prepared for and could handle, and just resulted in probably CrossFit getting a much worse name than it probably deserved, because it was just
wasn't even CrossFit.
Yeah, it was just applied so badly.
It was that just, like, functional training boom.
Yeah.
It's like every gym in the world was like, hey, here's our functional training area.
Space,
which, like, is great. But at the same time, like you say, if you don't know how to use it, and you get people that aren't really or shouldn't really be using it.
Yeah. So we've got this, like, general assessment. How do you, I guess, that person that comes in, judging how far along they are, like, that conversation, like, oh, I want to do a muscle up. And you're like, can you, like, maybe do a dumbbell shoulder press first? Like, do you have any kind of shoulder stability? Do you have any kind of, like, strength or whatever? Like, how do you go about someone with an intent to do something really cool and be like, actually, we're still... Actually, Ben, you're 98 kilos and move like a fridge. How about you just jog on the spot for a month, and then we'll talk about maybe some running.
Yeah, we don't want to shatter people's dreams, but sometimes some people need a reality check, don't they?
Correct. I guess, like, it'd feel like anything. Like, you just want to break that down. Like, cool, there's your long-term goal, but hey, before we're doing a muscle up, let's try and do one bodyweight chin up. You know, like little things like that. Because you're right, some people, and it's great that they've seen someone do something that's inspired them to come in and start training. Like, I'd never want to discourage someone and be like, you're dreaming. Because I firmly believe most things are within the realm of possibility for most people. Like, sure, if it was like, I want to go break the deadlift world record, I'd be like, okay, well, there's a select few people that are going to be able to do that. The rest of us can't. Yeah. But if it's something like a muscle up or running a marathon or something like that, it's like, it'll take time. It'll take the right type of training, but it is actually achievable. So, yeah, I think the big thing for us would be baseline, end goal, and then just break it down and be like, cool, we want to chase this for the next 4 weeks, then 4 weeks after this, chase that, and just, break it down and make sure they feel like they're progressing the whole time.
Yeah.
It's just ethical coaching, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
No different to any other goal. Like, you get a client who's like, I want to squat, 3 times my body weight. It's like, well, if you can't squat on the spot with no weight, like, you have to obviously just go, right, we're here now. This is what we need to do to qualify to get under the bar. And then you get under the bar and this is how training's going to look.
Yeah.
So it's
I think
very
it's
similar.
It's important because like people always want to know what's next. Looking ahead at, okay, well, if we can map out a training plan, and any good plan's always modifiable because it's never set in stone. So, but I think having those checkpoints, if you like, along the way is going to be really motivating for that person.
Being able to communicate too, like, I think the language used and how you present that language to the person is going to be make or break for them to buy into that plan. Because if someone comes to you guys and is like, oh, I want to be able to sprint, walk on your head, or whatever you want to do, all that stuff, and then you guys are like, oh, look at where you're at now, big fella, can't move, this, that, like, but this is how we'll do it. Like, that could basically, send that message to Ben. It's like, oh, well, this is too far out of my reach. There's not a lot of buy into this plan, so I might do it or I might not. 3 weeks in, it's just like, oh, I'm just going to go back to powerlifting. Where if you take the necessary steps and use the right language, and it's like, okay, cool, this is what you've done in the past, this is where we're at now. This is the needs analysis that you need to move towards the goal, and we're going to phase it this way. And it's like, that's the same conversation, just used with different words, but the buy-in's so much better.
Yes.
So there's a huge component to that of like how you communicate with people. And I think a lot of coaches don't, they're new, they don't know how to talk to people, they don't know how to like sit down and kind of present someone's goals. And I think that's a skill that they really need to learn.
Oh, 100%. Because like at the end of the day, programming, they call them the hard skills, but the soft skills of communicating and actually being able to, the art of coaching, where it's like, all right, how does my language influence that person in front of me to get the outcome that I want and they want as well, is massive.
Yeah. Yep.
So we had obviously had a chat, and then we put together, I guess, like what we thought the main 3 problems PTs would face when it comes to their training. So not confident dealing with athletic goals just in general. Not knowing how to program for it, and then the ability to like progress and regress their training, and then using like that kind of CrossFit era, just hard workouts for fitness. So we'll try and obviously cover all of those over the stage. One thing I've learnt from strength coaching is the same principles that apply to someone once they're proficient at the movement, the same principles for that person versus world record holders that I've trained with is the same all the way through. And I reckon I spent 3 years being like terrified to talk to the biggest guy in the gym because like, well, he's squatting fucking 380 kilos. What have I got to give at 170 kilos squat? And then you make the suggestion and it works. And you're like, oh, that worked exactly the same with you as it did with my 50 kilo female client. There's something to this. You're just stronger and probably need to do a little bit less volume. Tying that back into athletic development, I feel like there's going to be 3 sort of subcategories within that, where it's like your average gym goer who's just going to the gym primarily probably for a body comp outcome, and then wants to do that via a pursuit of athleticism. Then you've got your recreational kind of, whether they play basketball on the weekends or want to be better at golf or whatever, but they're coming to you and they're like, I want to be better at this thing. And then you've got someone who competes. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, I'd say so.
And what would be your considerations, I guess, across that, I guess, range of client, from someone who's body composition focused but likes the idea of training like an athlete, and then all the way through to someone whose money's on the line to get a job done?
Well, I guess it really comes back to, again, the training status and the training age of that individual. And I really like the toothpaste analogy. So it's like, you get the full tube of toothpaste, and it's like you can pretty much squeeze anywhere, and that there's toothpaste going to come out. So that window of adaptation, you can pretty much do anything, and they're going to get improvements. But obviously, as time goes, there's going to be less toothpaste in there. So you've got to be more specific and more targeted in your approach to be able to get the smallest marginal gain.
Yeah.
And that's more towards that developmental stage of a newbie to advanced. It's like we've got to be more specific with that person who's a little bit more advanced, because it's going to be a lot harder to get any change, but also then get a change that's going to be transferable to them actually performing better at their sport. Yeah. Whereas if we've got someone who is really new, we can get them stronger, and that's going to improve their speed, potential, power output, all that sort of stuff. And it doesn't really take much thought, really. But yeah, I reckon the biggest thing is where they're at currently in terms of what their training age. And like you said, and then from there, the principles and the guiding principles are the same in how we program.
Yeah, definitely. And probably the only other thing would be, depending on how but how important the performance outcome is for somebody, that's going to influence how we communicate the training plan as well. Yep. If someone's coming in, I just want to lose weight, but I like training like an athlete, then they like that type of training. So we're going to give them that type of training, because enjoyment for them is quite important.
Yeah.
You get all the way to professional athlete, then you get to the point where it's like, I don't really care if you enjoy this type of training, because you are paid to do this, and your livelihood is on the line. Yeah. And they understand that as well, because a lot of the stuff they will be doing will be nowhere near as fun, because there won't be the same, variety. Yeah. Whereas, you take that person who just wants to train like an athlete a little bit and lose some weight, they could come in and be like, oh, I saw this and I really like doing this, and you'd be like, yeah, cool, we can just chuck that in the session, because it doesn't matter, because pretty much everything's going to work, as Karl said. But then, as you get further up in that training age, it's like, oh, cool, like you want to do something different? Well, unfortunately, too bad, because, you need to compete on this date, and this is where we're at in the training cycle. So it's probably that as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Is there like a like a prerequisite level, or like a threshold that you think people need to get to before they can branch out to all these other levels of athleticism and whatnot? Like, if someone comes in off the street, let's just say like low training age, maybe slightly out of shape, aerobically unfit. It's like, and they want to be able to jump and do things explosively and whatnot. Like, would you say to that person, like, we need to get you to here and then we can do this and that, or would it be you just take a different path to each person that comes in? Yeah.
I guess a little bit of both. Like,
sorry, let me maybe reframe that. Is there things you look for that are probably?
Yeah. No, the question was good.
Probably. I mean, there's some things that are just unfortunate realities, which is how heavy somebody is going to impact their ability to do certain types of movements safely. So that's something that we're always mindful for. Like, if you have a low training age, you're overweight, you're out of shape, you're not going to be doing plyometrics.
You shouldn't be. Sorry.
You shouldn't be doing plyometrics.
Yes.
No matter what F45 puts on that screen, don't do it. But then, on the same token, as Karl said, like, we know that getting someone stronger and improving their body composition for that same person is going to improve all performance outcomes initially.
Yeah.
And that's something that we'll get into in the course as well, is that idea of simplifying again, like the force velocity curve basically means we'll get someone stronger and then we'll get them to be able to express strength faster over time.
Yeah.
So you get to a point where getting someone stronger in general, like if you can't squat your own body weight, for example, not that that's the be all and end all, but getting yourself to be able to squat your body weight is going to have a big impact on absolutely everything.
Yeah.
If you already squat, say like 1.5 times your body weight, pushing it to double body weight won't have the same impact again.
Yeah.
Then it might be, okay, we now want to work on power and
Change
speed and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But for those newbies, strength.
And I think, definitely. And like you get to a point where it's like you said, once they've developed that strength, then it's like really dependent on what their sports demands are. Like the biggest thing, especially, with field and court-based athletes and team sports, is time constraints. So, for their ability to express force, obviously, when we're doing, slow strength, we've got a lot of time to be able to produce that force. But in a game setting, for example, they've got to be able to produce force in a split second. So then power and what's called rate of force development is really important. So once we can get them to a point where they're strong enough, then it's like, all right, let's turn this strength into raw explosive power.
Yeah, I think that's something that's really valuable to walk away with. And I got given like dead numbers, like anything over 2 times body weight in squat and deadlift, and over 1.5 times bench, I think. Maybe body weight overhead was like, after that, don't even bother getting stronger than that. It won't make them a better athlete.
Yep.
But anyone under that, just getting to there will make them a better athlete. So I had clients in the past where it was like, my job is to make you stronger. Your coach's job, like in a field sport or whatever, it's their job to do the running drills, you do the skill drills and stuff with them, and I'm not touching it.
Yeah, perfect.
Is that similar to the approach that you would take? It was just like, if I just make someone initially much stronger, they're going to be a better athlete? Or early on, are you still considering force production, maybe a little bit of specificity in terms of the movements they need to do in the gym?
Yep.
Like, I know it gets overwhelming really quickly for coaches who, particularly if they've just done a Cert 4, because you're not really looking at it too much. Like, even off the cuff things that I've heard people say, like, oh, wide stance carries over to narrow stance, but the inverse isn't true, and things like that. Are you guys looking at that early, or it's just like train them how you would a general strength client, and then we worry about that later?
I think our approach is going to be setting a platform and a stage for everything else to come down the line. So yes, our focus is going to be getting them stronger, but also we're exposing them to different elements of athletic development. So we're looking at, fundamental movement patterns and fundamental movement skills as well, of, jumping, landing mechanics, so the ability to absorb force. That's the thing, your ability to produce force is going to be limited with your ability to absorb it first. So the better you can absorb force, the better you can produce force. So that's one thing we really look at. We look at speed development from a linear acceleration, top-end speed mechanics to multi-directional speed. So looking at direction initially in terms of the mechanics and technical side of it, and then obviously we get to a point once they're not advanced, but once they've got that understanding and they're competent in that, then we can look at true agility, which is going to be more reactive in nature, which is going to be a little bit more specific to game day demands. And then we're doing power stuff as well, so we're teaching them those elements from what their baseline is. So like I said, force absorption, to then just progressing them along, the continuum, which is something we'll go in on the course with plyometrics, because I think that's the biggest thing is, especially online on social media, people will see, drop jumps, desk jumps, and all this sort of stuff are really advanced methods of plyometric, which is, the shock method.
It's the first thing that came to my head when you said it.
Yeah.
They're the first thing
so people
sprung to my mind.
So if you had a person who's never done any plyometric or base level strength training, you get them day one doing that, it's going to be not good.
So those characteristics that you just spoke about, like of athletic development, like they're maybe better / more safer done with a base of strength though? Like, would you say that has to be there?
Yeah.
They have to work kind of together?
Definitely.
Yeah, I think you just regress it to where they're at. So I think what Karl's saying, like if somebody's, wants to get stronger for football, for example, we're still going to train them across the board. We might emphasize strength more, but at the same time, everything else that we're doing is still going to be there. It'll be once someone's at a certain level of strength, it's like, cool, now we can ramp up the power, now we can ramp up the speed. But it's like, until that point, it's more about exposing them in different areas, because, moving better, especially when you're working with a younger athlete, learning how to move is really, really important. And then, the load can come and the speed can come and stuff like that. And obviously the sport matters a lot. If it's a field-based sport, or if it's like an individual sport, it might be slightly different, again, in terms of what you want to do. But in general, I think like a concurrent approach is definitely doable. I think it's a bit of a mistake to be like, oh, the only thing that matters is strength, because you go, okay, cool, we've gotten this guy stronger over 6 months, but now he wants to go and play football for preseason, but he hasn't done any aerobic training for 6 months, and guess what? He's at the back of the pack every single time, and he can't keep up.
Can't change direction either.
Exactly. So
you've got to be able to prepare the body, the tissues and everything.
So you want to make sure that, yes, strength is kind of the foundation for everything, but at the same time, if you're not training powerlifters, then you can't only get strong at the expense of everything else. You still need to be able to have it like as part of like a broader approach to improve their performance.
It's a good way of looking at it.
I suppose we talked about the sport, and depending on it could be amateur, could be to professional, elite. They're paid to move well, in the context of what they're sporting environment is. So, and we were talking about cars before. It's just like, all right, well, we can improve the engine and the output in terms of their power, but their ability to control that and everything like that is dictated by the driver. So it's just like, at the end of the day, we can improve their output, we can improve their horsepower, but if they can't control the wheel, and they go into a cut and they don't know how to control their own body weight and momentum, then bad things are going to happen.
Yeah.
So
did you just make that up? That's pretty good.
Is it pretty good?
Yeah,
that was very good.
I'll take it.
I understood that totally. So
I just kept rolling with it.
I was like, that's good. Yeah.
I was like, I think this is making sense.
if it didn't,
I was getting
everyone
nods.
would have understood anyway. Everyone just would have nodded like,
I was like, that makes sense. Yeah.
analogy, good.
Yeah, perfect. Fantastic.
So I guess like we live in the physique realm and the strength realm predominantly. And when we look at programming and discussing the topics and the variables specifically to those areas, starts off, everyone's going to have sets, reps, volumes, intensity, frequency, and stuff.
Yep.
Then we sort of say, I just think when I say physique, I just lean towards you.
Jace looks good.
Jace might look more like... I meant as a coach. Nah, it's fine. Jace might lean more towards like tracking sets per muscle group, and then training them even in different stretch position, shorten position, all of those kind of variables. Then I'm considering how much prime movement, accessory movement, compound movement, isolation for full, what's the actual systemic load that's happening over a week.
Yep.
What are the variables? You mentioned impact, you've mentioned force production. Do you guys... being so variable for the outcome, do you have quantifiable metrics with that stuff, or it's just a consideration that we need to manage how much impact that we're putting this person through, or we need to manage the total load, and how do you go about that? What are the metrics?
That's a great question. I think it's all going to be similar, but there's just going to be a few little differences, obviously. So one of the big things that we will track, along with all the raw data. So we'll still track volume, obviously, in terms of weight lifted, how you would traditionally track it. We'll still track that. We'll track distance if they're doing a lot of running volume. And then you can break that down. You can be really specific. So you could use volumes at different intensities. So above a certain speed is obviously going to be more taxing than below a different speed. So you can get very technical depending on how important that is for that person. And then the big one is RPE as well. So I know that in the strength realm, powerlifters, etc., they like to think that they invented RPE. RPE has been around for a very, very long time. And in a sports science sense, it's applied a little bit differently. So you typically take a session RPE. And what you're really assessing there is, again, like you were saying, the global fatigue. How are they feeling at the end of a session? Because it's just, and we don't use, I'm not saying we don't, but we don't regularly use RPE programming per set, for example, because it gets a little bit confusing when you try and apply session RPE and set RPE. It's more we'll do prescribed loads, and then if someone's cooked, we'll be okay, take some weight off the bar. So I guess it still is auto-regulated in a different sense. But for us, it's that overall feeling of exertion after the session. And the big one that you use in sports science, S&C, is the acute to chronic load. So that's the idea that your chronic is typically a 4-week training load, and your chronic is typically 1 week. So what we don't want is basically a big spike in the acute versus the chronic, which basically is a fancy way of saying you should gradually increase training loads over time, which is just progressive overload, right? But people stuff that up all the time. It's really easily done. So if, as a general rule, you got your 4-week training loads, your volumes, etc., you wouldn't want to spike, say, more than 10% above that in a single training week, unless you were deliberately overreaching, which is another discussion.
And then it gets a little bit hard with, because obviously the acute to chronic has been bashed and all that sort of stuff, and there's people jumping on either saying, no, we can't predict injuries, and it's well, yes, obviously it's a measurement. It's just giving us an idea that if we continue at this trend, then it's
highly likely.
Yeah, there might be a greater risk. So it's one of those things. It's people just I'm in this ratio, the red zone. I'm I'm going to break down. But it's no, it's
No,
okay. Like,
it's
don't
just-
freak out. But
Yeah.
and like Max said, so it becomes harder as well if you got a athlete who's just come back from injury as well. So they might be with their acute to chronic because their baseline's so low. It's like straight away, it's like, oh, they're in the red. But it's like, no, because we're starting at a low base.
Yeah.
So that's another consideration as well.
Yep.
Because obviously, athletes typically are going to be banged up a lot of the time, and we're going to modify things as we need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then things like, I don't know if people go down this road, but like measuring, like we look at squat, hinge, upper pull, upper push. Do you then look at those, and then would you add like rotation or like measuring even how often you're in each plane and all that kind of stuff? Do you keep that as a value, or it's just keeping an eye on it?
Yeah, good question. So when we program, it'd be similar. So I think anybody should have some kind of way to categorize exercises, whatever it is. Obviously, if it's physique, muscle group makes sense. For us, we use movement patterns. So then we'll basically categorize based on knee dominant or hip dominant, just, squat or hinge. And then we have, horizontal and vertical, push, pull, core. You can use like so many of these. But then from there, we'll go stance that you're in. So that's probably something that's a little bit different. So if you're a physique or strength athlete, you could probably get away with really only ever being in one stance and really only ever being in one plane of motion. Not that you should do that, but I think a lot of people do that. So then the stance can differ, and that's where way we can progress things. So stance, plane of motion, and then from there it would be like velocity. So that'd be like the tempo that you're moving at. So there's a lot of different factors at play there that we play around with. In terms of tracking it, we typically just stick to the basics. So I think unless there's a reason for it, we would typically just track like the volume of the exercise or the movement over time, and then the loads, how they're progressing. And then if there was like an injury concern or a specific performance outcome, then we could test and track like the speed that they were moving at or things like that. But I think as a basic level, you wouldn't necessarily need to do that. I don't think more data is always better. Unless there's a purpose.
I think Pat Davidson has a pretty good model on that stuff. It's a lot though. There's a lot of categories.
There's a lot. I think like ours would be just a watered down. Like I think like when Pat gets on a roll, you're just like, wow, this guy's so much smarter than everybody, which is great. And I think his movement pattern stuff is 10 out of 10. It's just for us, I would say that he's got like the complete guide, but sometimes the complete guide isn't actually that useful for the purpose. So for us, and I think that's something that any coach should do. Like go out there and learn all this stuff and figure out like what you actually need. So we don't have as many categories. I would say we've got the skeleton there, but in terms of how my thorax rotates, I don't really care.
I wouldn't even call it like you said watered down. I don't even think of it like that. Hey, it's like it's just
useful.
Yeah, more purposeful maybe is another way to
sort of like
term
if
that.
we don't need it in there. Don't just have it for the sake of having it there.
Yeah, well, he's probably going with a comprehensive model for us to know what we could possibly use, and then we just take what's necessary and make our own models, right? That's what everybody does.
Which is pretty much like what we've done with everything. Which I'm sure what everybody does, but like it's like you take useful things. And what's that saying? Like we're standing on the shoulders of giants. So, and even what we're going to put in this course, it's like, we've done a lot of courses, but you take little bits out of people and you refine your approach a little bit. So like, Pat Davidson in terms of like movement is huge. And then you got like the Mike Boyle who pretty much invented the progression regression stuff, and then you just chuck it all into one neat little package.
I suppose the key for PTs and coaches is make sure you copy from smarter people.
That's the key.
We'd always done that. Copy for someone next to you on a test, and it's like, well, I got worse marks than they did. How does that work?
And also I think it's really important because I see it in the strength world all the time. It's like Jordan Shallow introduces stability. Everyone does stability. And then
flavor of the month.
Pat comes out and says stability just means not falling over, and then you see all these strength coaches that were doing fucking RDL with a rotation windmill, touch your nose and your other toe at the same time. All of a sudden they're like, no, fuck warm-ups, just squat more. It's like, how did that jump that far? I think it's really important to actually look at the information that you're taking in from someone like a Pad or you guys or whoever, and then like, okay, how does that fit into what I'm currently doing? Don't throw it out. Like just, this is my model now and I'm attached to this and this is what I post about. Like, how do you develop your own model over time?
Correct, yeah.
And that's it's going to evolve.
Yeah.
Like, it would be the same. Like, if we looked 5-10 years back at an old program we wrote or something like that, a training plan, you'd be like, what is this, right? How did this kid get results? Or you'd be like, some of them you look back and you're like, why am I not doing this now?
Yeah, I've done that before.
Yeah,
done
like,
both. Looked and laughed and been ashamed, and then done it and gone, hey,
And you're like,
this is
hang on a
good.
minute.
Hey,
Why did I stop doing
Yeah,
this?
2014, I was a genius.
On this one thing.
Yeah, so it's amazing how that happens.
Yeah, awesome. So what do you think, covering off the confidence side of things, what do you think are the main reasons club trainers, let's call them, are hesitant to move into that athletic kind of realm?
Well, I think it's the mindset, or what we said, a misconception that it needs to be advanced.
Yeah.
Like, they need to get all the tools and tricks out and it needs to be a show, but it's like, no, like the basics work. And at the end of the day, like, especially like we've said, if you've got a young athlete, and because a lot of them, especially in commercial big box gyms, they've probably been told from their sporting coach that, you need to get strong, you need to put some size on. So they're just going to go and train having no idea what they're doing. So you are the best candidate to look after them. Because even if you just get them moving better, that's just going to make them more efficient at what they have to do, and they're less likely to get injured, and as a result, their performance is going to improve as well. So, even without the landing mechanics, all that sort of stuff, like, this stuff's good because obviously you're setting a platform for them to be able to springboard off as they develop and as they advance. But also, if you're doing it and you're getting attention, like, people are going to look over and be like, oh, what's that person doing? Like, if they're doing jumping or landing mechanics and they're doing some speed development drills in a gym setting like that, people are going to start recognizing that, and they're probably going to start inquiring and asking about what's that person doing.
I feel like it's an underutilized thing. Hey, you don't see...
Yeah.
Very rarely see it done well.
Yep.
Someone actually implementing all of those facets in the training. Like, I know, I can, on the top of my head, I can think of one guy that works in like a good life setting that trains people with the purpose of athletic development, with purpose, and like is good at it.
Yeah, I think it'd be a massive, because Carl's coming from the youth element, which is like the obvious one. Then I almost think like old dudes love just like reliving their glory days.
Oh yeah.
You're like,
I used to be able to do this.
You used to be able to do this, and then it's like, and then if your whole sales pitch is like, we're just going to get you're 45, and I just want to get you moving like you were when you were 25.
Yeah.
Like, literally every single, like, I don't know, I want to move like I did when I was 25, and I'm
yeah.
30. So I'm imagining when I'm 45, I'll be like,
Yeah.
shut up and take my money.
Yeah.
Like, that'd be a
fucking
huge area.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I've experienced that obviously recently, jumping back into running.
Mm.
It's like walking out on, we were there the other week and the mole was there
Yeah.
and there was a couple of guys kicking a footy and I was like, that smell and that sound, it's like, I just want to break down the wing, hands out in front, and I was like, oh, I still can't run that far. But definitely you can resonate with that, and I think it's a really big hole that people maybe don't plug, potentially because they're scared of it, and the ones that do go down that road tend to be the ones that don't think about it at all. It's just like, here's what I saw at the games. Let's have a go at that.
I think it's not that's the naivety part. So like, that's what I was gonna say is like, not everyone's not confident. They don't know.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of naive trainers that, like, it's the box jump thing. Like, it's like, you're 40 kilos overweight.
Yeah.
Let's get you jumping. You know, it's like that. They just don't understand the prerequisites, like you guys said before, with the needs analysis and that stuff. So it's like there's a combination of people that are maybe fearful of, like, or not confident, in how to approach athletic development or characteristics of athletic development. And then there's people that just like don't know and just send it on with a facility with screens that people just follow and do activities that they shouldn't, and they're not pre-screened to see if they can do the activity and whatnot.
Yeah.
That's an issue as well. But
Yeah, that's another rabbit hole. No, but yeah, again, it's just like one of those things where, yes, there's these depending on, generally 90% of the programming, we're going to look the same. The 10% might be a little bit different. But we're going to try and develop, these different qualities in terms of strength, power, speed, aerobic fitness, all that sort of stuff. but it really just depends on where they're currently at.
Yeah.
And then having a system to be able to progress them over time, and knowing how to do that, and that's something that we really want to cover on the course, to be able to give coaches that toolbox that, okay, in this scenario, I can progress them from here, and it just gives you confidence knowing that you're looking after the athlete in front of you, whether they be a youth athlete or whether, like we said, a washed up athlete who just wants to relive their glory days and feel good again. The principles are the same.
Yeah, and I think like we touched on it last time we caught up with the injury stuff. Like we never purposely go out to injure our clients.
No.
But we should always be assessing the risk.
Yep.
Like, and good coaches, coaches doing this course, listening to this podcast, they're those coaches. And if you're not, you should be always looking at things going, how's this client going to react to this program, and how they're going to respond, and have, feedback to give you a bit of a determination of it.
Yep.
A lot of I find the naivety of training with young coaches is they don't look at that stuff. They're just like, is this person prepared to do this? Like, how do I have this analysis of like where they should be? And then they just go and send it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, we want to make sure that person doesn't do that.
Yes.
They have the ability. And it's like, sure, like injuries happen. We spoke about that already. Like, I'm sure you guys have all got clients. I'm saying I've been injured, lots.
Yeah.
Not anymore. But it's like, then you have the skills to work with that person.
Yep.
But you don't want to be the root cause of the, like, ever.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes it happens, but you want to minimize it.
Correct. Yep. And I think, especially once you get more towards that elite level, like we talked about the toothpaste, once we're trying to squeeze any little marginal gain, there's always going to be more of an element of risk. And there's, that continuum performance and health. And, yes, we want to have the athlete's health as the foremost importance, but sometimes when you're trying to push that performance element, something's going to give.
The task at hand isn't always healthy.
Yeah.
The main objective, it's like, that's where you're weighing up the cost benefit, right?
Yeah, definitely.
100%.
Yeah, I think you made an important point too of like, quite often someone's going to come in with a prescription from their coach, like their sporting coach. And I think that's what I've been exposed to most in health club settings.
Yep.
When it comes to this kind of realm, it's like, one guy I had was 2 hours away from his, where his club was. So he needed to come in and train, and then he was just doing his running and stuff outside of that.
Yep.
Because he couldn't get to training. Another guy was just like trying to get into schoolboys and was probably 10 kilos too small to take it in that sort of space.
Yep.
And they're the type of people that usually come in.
Yep.
And I think what we talked about with the injury thing was like, put together a network of physios and have good conversations and all of that kind of stuff. And then when it comes to the athlete development thing, it's like, speak to their coach.
Yeah.
Where are they lacking? What do they need? Why are they here? What's like, because get stronger and bigger, it's cool, but it's like, what else is going on? What do you actually need from this person to be able to do in 6 months? What's my job?
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing. Like, again, we can physically prepare an athlete, and that will hopefully improve their performance. But we can't forget about the other components of athletic performance to truly maximize it. So you got the skilled technical side of whatever you do is going to be the most important thing, because whatever sport it is, if you can't do it at a higher level, then your physical qualities are only going to take you so far. Yeah. Particularly in early stage, you'll see, and I've been bullied, in junior ranks, because physically you're not as developed as some other man-childs, and but then don't worry. So then obviously as their physical development stagnates, then you sort of catch up, and then it's a different ball game. But it's one of those things that the skill is always going to be one of the most important factors, and the physical side of it should complement that.
Do you find the communication between the sports teams, the coach, the staff, to the athlete, to you guys, is an acceptable kind of standard? Because like the thing that I'm going to be honest, right? The thing that put me off athletic development altogether was my placement that I did at a WRFL team. It's like I was taken there to do data analysis and run their strength and development. We'll call it strength and conditioning or whatever.
Yep.
And it's like they didn't want to follow the specific programs that were for their sport and physical characteristics, and just wanted to like do bicep curls in the mirror and shit. So then I was like, well, one, this person's not communicating the message enough to these guys to get buy-in to do it. Two, I'm not here with a position of authority to get these people to follow. I'm just like the new guy from uni. And then three, I was like, you guys aren't bought in enough to appreciate the skill set that we're putting together on this program. You think it's just there for shits and giggles, and it's not going to make your biceps bigger in your footy singlet. So I just left it. I was like, this is 8 hours of my week that I can go and make $1,500.
Yeah.
So I just took off.
Yeah.
You know, and I never looked back. And it's like I just wonder, like, that was 12 years ago.
Yeah.
So I just wonder if, like, you guys have seen the same thing happen, where it's like, or you've seen an improvement or a combination.
I can see steam coming from
Yeah.
that side of
Yeah.
the room. I'm
No,
like,
well,
yes,
we have
yes,
to
yes,
have
they
this-
have.
We have to bring this up because
No,
it's like
really good point.
because we get sold that you get to work with athletes, you get to work with movie stars, all this shit. Like everyone gets sold that shit when they study, and it's like, what happens in the real world? Because I've got an idea of what I think happens, and I want to know if it still does.
Yeah.
You'd have a few
It
stories.
does. Yeah. Well, like what I say to people when we get intense and stuff, it's like I, for a period, reached like the promised land of any exercise science graduate, which was actually being like a full-time strength and conditioning coach at a sports club. And people are like, ooh, because like you can't really get those jobs, and parts of it are fantastic, but parts of it are shit, like anything. And the logistics side of it and the drama behind the scenes is one of those things.
Yeah.
And depending on the sport, certain sports have gotten better, but we're still seeing. Recently, what was that? We're like in these different Facebook groups, and I think it was Hawthorn advertised a position for a head of performance for their whole AFLW team for an entire season, and they wanted to pay $2,000, and they wanted somebody to have a master's degree at a minimum.
Yeah. That was the minimum required.
can you
was a
ask for
master's
that?
degree,
This happens
which
all the
is like
time,
at
right?
least 5-6 years.
And
study.
the worst part is, the absolute worst part is,
$2,000.
someone will do it. Because they'll be like, ooh,
Get my
I'm
foot in
at
the door.
Hawthorn, and they'll put photos on their Instagram of them in a Hawthorn polo. And then someone will do it, and that'll just ruin things for the next generation all over again. So there's still that, not getting valued, but it is better than it used to be, for sure. But there's still, like, if you're, one of the most important skills, if you're going to work, even though that's not what this podcast is about, at a sports club, is your communication skills, because you need to be able to manage relationships between all those people you mentioned. So you got like your physios, your allied health, you got the coaches, you've got the players, you've got like dietitians and stuff. And if you want to be effective, you need to be on good terms with everybody, because ultimately the coaches are going to call the shots, and they want you to somehow work around them, which you can do. And then you've got to somehow keep everybody happy, and deal with the dramas. And typically what you'll find is you spend a lot of time with the athletes themselves. So you'll be someone they can confide in, and you'll be the person that's got to like deliver messages back to different people. Like, hey, when you said this, you've upset this guy. So, it's all this, and you end up being the dietitian because they don't listen to the dietitian, because the dietitian's just like, and the dietitian that I was working with was like 60 years old and would give these presentations. None of the boys would listen. So then they'd be like, hey, what do you reckon? And that's how I started getting into nutrition, because I was always the guy giving nutrition advice. So it's still quite similar. Okay. But it all just comes back to like those soft skills are super, super important. And half the time, even at the elite level, it's like you'd write like a 12-week training program and you'd be changing it week 2 because this training schedule for the next 10 weeks has now changed, and you were going to do 4 sessions with them, but now you're doing 2, and you're like, oh, okay, cool. Fuck me then.
That was my biggest thing, is like just that things happen and change so quickly. That the coach could be like happy one time, or one day being ready for you to take 10-20 minutes of some speed development mechanics, and then they've had a shit game on the weekend, so he's like, I'm going to flog him on Monday, and then he's like hands them over to you being like, all right, speed development now. I'm like, there's no way we're getting any actual genuine stimulus. Yeah, correct. So it's like we're just doing some off leg stuff. So it's just like, again, you got to make sure you minimize risk. We fill buckets in terms of what we need to fill, and don't overfill buckets that are already filled. So
No, I did a seminar for a GVFL club on nutrition specifically. And I was like, first big room of people I'd ever really spoken to. Like, it was all three teams and a couple of the netball teams as well. So it was like, boots on, nice slacks, polo. All right, let's go. All right, boys, we're going to start. Yeah, all right, everyone grab a beer. Let's go. And I was like, oh, fuck, no. Okay. This is going to be an uphill struggle.
By then you're just getting heckled.
Yeah, everyone grab 2 beers because it's going to take an hour. Fuck, okay, this is going to be interesting. Yeah, it's a wild world, that like fringe professional.
Yeah, even
amateur.
at like that shit you talk about, I'm like, that still happens at professional.
Yeah.
Like that's not
Yeah.
even semi-professional. It's like dealing with people hungover was like a regular occurrence.
Yeah.
And it's like you're on $1 million a year.
Yeah.
Stop turning up hungover.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like-
it's insane.
Yeah, it's crazy. And like we, like athletically haven't achieved
No,
much.
but that's
And
the-
it's like, I'm like, fucking gonna get that 250 kilo squat and like
Yeah,
give
yeah.
up all that shit for it, and you get paid that much money and you
Yeah.
don't. It's crazy.
it is crazy.
So on that topic, because like as much as what we're gonna do in the 1% is call it introductory.
Yep.
This is how you train people, get you in the door, like learning to strength train.
Yep.
Yes.
From there, you guys I know are going to have courses and other development ideas, and also you can go learn from other people. If you, like I walked into was supposed to be a bridging the gap from physio or from allied health to personal training course. It didn't do that. But what I did learn was strength training.
Yep.
And I was like, this is fucking mad, and went down a rabbit hole, and that's what I do for a living now.
Yeah, nice.
So there's definitely the potential for people to get exposure to this and then go down that road.
Yep.
And we've just shat on basically becoming that for a sports team or something like that. What do you guys think about the new, I guess, generation? Like Woodford comes to mind. You guys with your speed stuff. What's his name? Jared Kay has like his speed project. Like there's lots of this privatization, independent, working directly with athletes.
Yep.
What do you guys... Where is it right now? Because I just know the names and I've seen the Instagram clips.
Yep.
What's it like right now, and then where do you see it going in the next 5 years?
It's good, to be honest.
Yeah,
I think a lot of it's born from having a really strong passion for that field, but then being a little bit disenchanted for how it works within those systems.
Yep.
And the way that the other thing is why these services now exist. Like I haven't spoken to Jared specifically about this, but a lot of the athletes have like mandated time off when they're not allowed to be trained by the club, for example, right? And I believe what he's doing is kind of filling that void, because a lot of these guys, especially if you're at that elite level, but you're on the more junior side, it's like you don't really want to have an off season where you just like
Do nothing.
do nothing. Yeah,
Correct.
that's your opportunity to really improve, right? So I think he's filling that niche, and I think that's a really big growth area.
Yeah.
And I think now what we're seeing is more and more people willing to invest in themselves for that. And I think as well, on the flip side of that, more and more people that aren't at that elite level, but are more interested in performance goals than they used to be. So I'd say, yeah, if you want to do it, you can definitely come to a facility like ours or Jared's or Woodford, etc. But I think, like what you were saying, I think a big gap is just the regular Good Life example. If you are like the performance guy at a Good Life, I can't see you being stuck for clients, really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
I think
neither.
it's I'm
Yeah.
like more, especially like, prerequisite. If you're the good performance guy, if you're good at it,
The
I could-
actual performance guy.
actual
Yeah.
performance
Yes.
guy. I think it would be a big growth area.
Yeah.
'Cause I think more and more people are more interested in, yes, how they look and how strong they are, but also like what they can do outside of that. I think that's going to be a big growth area.
We've seen that. Like we've gone to comps with, I think our biggest meet was 18 lifters. None of them trained in a powerlifting gym.
Yeah.
All of them trained out of Good Life with bumpers, and we were like, hey, for your peak, maybe go try what an Alico kit feels like.
Feels like
Yeah. Sit on a competition bench.
Yeah.
See
Yeah.
what the height of it.
Correct.
So yeah, like I think people look down their nose at like this big box model. It's like you've got 4,000 people there. So if we can find 20 of them that actually, not even just genuinely strength train, actually went to the platform, I think we were pretty lucky. There wasn't that many competitors, but I think we took home like 13 medals. Many of them because they were the only one in the weight
I was
class.
just about to say.
Doesn't matter.
Lots of one of ones.
Doesn't matter.
But hey, when I put it on social media, we
Yeah.
took home 13
They
medals.
showed up. That's what I say. They showed up.
Yeah, it's like, and I don't see why. There's plenty of footballers that go to big box gyms. There's plenty of netballers and basketballers and whatever other sport you can think of that are going in there doing the extra work to get better and who need the help and guidance that they maybe don't, like we just talked about. The standard is go and get 3 beers because this nutrition presentation is going to be boring, and we need to entertain ourselves.
Yep.
Whereas in a gym environment, obviously, they're a lot more receptive to an individual relationship.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's, and like you said, it just keeps expanding in terms of, now with females football and everything like that, and obviously, the weekend there's still that injury and obviously that's different variables come into play because that, but there is more of a need now in terms of that physical preparation as well. So it's only just going to get more and more in terms of that exposure. So it is definitely, like you said, a growth market that can be tapped into for sure.
So one more question, I guess, on that same idea. You talk about going to gyms and not having good equipment all the fucking time.
I'm the worst.
We are very fussy.
I'm the fussiest gym goer in the world, I reckon.
We say the same. Like, I think Nexus put a post in their client group and we're like, what annoys you about powerlifting training in clubs? Everyone said the barbells.
Yeah.
So as a strength athlete pursuing a strength outcome in that environment, there's limitations.
Yep.
What are they from a performance sector? And if you're a trainer looking to go down this road, how would you overcome them?
That's a good question. I think you have more flexibility in terms of equipment. You don't it's always nice to have shiny stuff. Don't get me wrong. And as I say this, we've just ordered a bunch of stuff. But
I've banned him from looking online.
I'm banned from buying gym equipment.
I'll see the spender.
He talked me out of it, thankfully. I almost bought a $2,000 set of kettlebells, and Max was like, "Look, you probably don't need them."
Yeah, I was like, I'm very good at giving advice. I'll just be like, if the roles are reversed, I've bought them.
They come on Wednesday.
Yeah, exactly. No, you don't need any of that stuff. Your biggest premium when it comes to performance training is space. You need space. That's the biggest thing. And that's probably if we're gonna change one thing about our space, it wouldn't be the equipment. We're fully kitted out now, especially. It would be, hey, I just want an extra 100 square meters.
Yeah.
I just want that of just empty space and just bare walls to throw shit at. That's what we want, and that's probably what we're going to talk about in the modules as well. When you're training people, how are you actually going to do it in that environment? That's going to be a big one.
It's such a big thing to think about, every program. You don't want to be that trainer fucking with the superset of squats and bench press or some shit. It's look, it looks good on paper, man, but fucking
Doesn't
6
work.
p.m.
Logistically.
everyone's going to hate you, man, and your clients as well.
It doesn't work. There's that. And then the big one we wanted to put in there was how do you? Because everyone, PTs, I think that if I give my client cardio when I'm with them, probably not really.
There's no
servicing them.
value in it.
Not value in it. But it's okay, cool. For a lot of performance goals, that's super, super important. So you can't be just not going to do any cardio. We're just going to do 4 strength sessions a week or whatever. Yeah. It's so...
Even them doing it.
Yeah. Well, are they going to do it?
The value is them showing up, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So we coin it energy system development. But call it whatever you want for your clients. But it's if you go, are you going to do 30 minutes of cardio? But it's you're going to do 30 minutes of energy system development of your session.
Ooh, sounds pretty good. Even I'm thinking about jumping in on that
Ooh.
until I realise what it is. Or fuck, I'm out.
Energy systems mean puffing, Jason.
Yes.
But we talk about methods to do that. So that'll be a whole module in the course.
Awesome.
But how you can go about it. And it'll be things like using tempo intervals so you can tick off all your core training, but keep them in an aerobic zone. And you can move it, and it feels athletic as well. You don't have to be just walking on an incline treadmill for 45 minutes. Nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to go on the elliptic. Well, you can do that. I personally do not. I would be going batshit crazy.
Yeah, you'd be like, no, get me out of here.
Get me out of here. But different ways to go about it. And I think that'll be important as well. If you are, in your good life or Anytime Fitness, where space is a little bit of an issue, how are you going to work in that space? Because that's going to be a big thing in terms of what you can actually do.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I guess, like I said, we talked about the programming. There's not much different, but we'll map out how you can structure a session and the priority of, what you want to do in certain orders and the principles within that. So, we want to do our high velocity, high speed, high power movements first, and then we're working more into, our high force sort of stuff. And then obviously at the end, we finish with some conditioning or energy system development. So there is an order and flow that's going to be optimal to make sure that, we are ticking what we need to tick off, but also we're creating, I guess, the environment to allow us to get the training effect that we're after.
Yeah. And we want to make sure it works for people as well. Like,
Yeah.
we wanted to, like, with this course, it's like, we don't want to tell you, like, hey, this is how you have to train people. It's not like that. But at the same time, we didn't want to be like, here's all the principles, because then
it's boring.
It's boring.
You
and
don't
then
want to be the it depends person, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like, which,
correct.
like, it does depend, but at the same time, that people just want to be like, what do I do?
But what about
Yeah.
in this situation?
Yeah,
that's it.
exactly. So, like, that's going to be a big part of it. Like, hey, here's what we do. Feel free to modify that, but you need to have some kind of, like, starting structure, I think. And then also, like, I don't know about you guys, but sometimes, like, you know, you do a course, you do a mentorship, and then you wanted to, like, go back to revisit, like, one certain part of it, and then you go, is it, I was watching that video, is it like the 33-minute and 30-second mark, and you can never really find that bit of information again, and that always does my head in. So one thing I was like, we're putting together a cheat sheet for people at the end of this course. It'd be like, refer back to this, all your key terms and stuff.
That's incredible.
Bang. And then that way, it's like, cool, there's a PDF, have it on your drive or whatever when you're writing a program. So if you forget something, you just open that right up.
Guess who has to do that for all their modules now?
Yeah, geez, really setting the standard. I didn't think that was a prerequisite, boys.
We invited these guys in, and we got one yesterday. And Jace messaged me. He's like, "This is fucking awesome," and I was like, "Cool, we're gonna have to like make sure
Lift
all
out.
of our
now,
shit."
now I've got to rewrite everything that I did.
Everyone does these little bits of like
I'm
just
going
extra
first.
quality, and we're like, "All right, we got to bump."
I'm just
We
going
gotta do
first
that.
so that the bar's like just non-existent. Mine will be awesome, by the way.
No,
So-
it's good we've teamed up as well. Otherwise, mine would be like this, just like pure black and white, just bulk bits of text. But then I have Karl, who's like, I'm going to jazz this up a little bit. Thanks, buddy.
We complement each other very well.
Yeah. So last question, and then I want to try something a little bit different for the end of the episode. Strength, physique coaches are who predominantly listen to this and who predominantly come through our Standout PT program. Maybe you're looking at this going, that's all well and good, but I don't train those. But the guys are funny, so I've listened to the whole episode.
Yep,
Yeah.
great.
Maybe a little bit of an insight as to the benefits of knowing this stuff and then working with those kind of athletes as well.
Well, I think, one, it opens up more doors and opportunities. But I think having the skills and understanding athletic development and the principles within it, they will set you up for any client you have. Max talked about the constantly having to modify things, but also to be, okay, this has just changed. So plan A is not going to work. How can I then have plan B that's going to be as close to plan A as possible, still get that training effect? And I think there's skills that are really important that cross over to any sort of client and population that you work with, and communicating, to get that buy-in, especially I reckon with young athletes as well, because it's not only them but it's also the parents. But if you can get buy-in from the parents, then you pretty much got a client for life.
Yeah, I would echo what Karl said, and I said that probably the biggest one, most obvious one, like why should you have some idea of this realm, is just client retention. Like, I think it's pretty unrealistic that you're going to have a long-term client that's going to have the same goal all the time.
Yeah.
Especially if they've gone all in one certain area. Like, I don't know about you, but typically you find clients get burnt out and they want to mix things up. So this might be your opportunity where it's like that person could go and look for a different coach. Or you might now have the skills to be like, cool, for the next 12 weeks, we're just going to flip the approach a little bit, give you a break from that, and we're going to look at all these different areas. Carryover is like, you're probably going to get better at your main thing as well. So I'd say that. And then also, I think it's going to make you better as a strength coach, especially. I think
I thought the same.
if you understand some of these principles, like a lot of everything kind of filters down. We'll go back to car analogies. Everything starts at Formula One. And it makes its way down, right? And then eventually you buy a Toyota Corolla and it's got like ABS brakes and shit because they put it in Formula One in like the 90s. We're doing the same thing. It's like everything starts off, you research like at the top performance level, and then it just slowly trickles down. Most block periodization that people use for powerlifting is just what the Russians did in like the 70s, right? So if you start to get a good understanding of those principles, it's like you start to understand more of like the concepts, and it's like, yeah, cool, that would work. But equally, so will this. And I think you just have more tools in your toolbox.
Perfect. I think should have started with him.
I think the conditioning element and just the capacity to do work from the strength element side, like, and that's one thing I wrote a program for one of my clients the other day, and he's like, "What the fuck is this conditioning stuff?" And I was like, "Welcome to 2022, bro.
Yeah.
All of my clients now have some form of like
Awesome.
the strength one, some form of conditioning work. Because like I know how much better I felt
Yep.
bringing it in,
Yep.
and how much better I was under the barbell, and how much shorter my sessions were, and all of the benefits that came from that.
Yep.
And then I think the other thing is just like you mentioned, quality of movement 100 times today. Having quality of movement in both of those realms is so important.
Yeah.
Like if you can't get into a position or move well in a position as a physique athlete, you're not going to develop. And the same is for strength. It's going to end up probably in a niggle that you'll ignore,
Yep.
and then that's going to end up to time off the barbell.
Yep.
So I think that's really, really valuable. And then one that maybe is a little bit left of center, and I'm really curious if you experience this as well. The girls that I have that lose movement quality feel bulky and want to diet.
I haven't experienced that. But
So yeah,
I guess the hard thing with being strictly or more strictly in the physique area is there's a movement that you do because you can't do this movement.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
just
Like you don't
move
want to
it
fall
down.
into that trap.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. Like you still want to be able to like, I still want my clients to be able to like, fucking lunge
Yeah.
straight ahead and look around and rotate and
Yeah.
stuff. But it's just like the spectrum of like how massive they.
more narrow.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. Like the function to massiveness.
Yeah,
There's a lot more like training around that.
Yeah,
especially as they get more serious. So
I've just noticed even within myself, like going into like a very the specific block, and it's like my movement's shit, and it's like I feel fucking enormous. Like putting shoes on hard, washing, like we talked about, washing my back is hard, and it's like you've got a girl who's coming in lifting heavy weights who feels like that on a day-to-day basis, and they're like, I don't like this.
Yeah.
I'm too big, because they perceive that it's
Yeah.
all of a sudden they've blown up. But really, it's just like if they were moving well, they felt light on their feet, and they felt free, maybe they're a little bit more committed to that hypertrophy block or that strength block or whatever. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen in males. I just train more females than males, so I've experienced it.
I think it would probably be more prevalent in females.
Yep.
If we had to, stereotype. That makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I think the conditioning thing's massive. Like, I can't think of very many goals where you shouldn't include some level of aerobic conditioning.
or even being aerobically fit is a detriment.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like, oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
You-
it's
you-
like, you're too fit for this. You're too fit for
Yeah.
bodybuilding. You're
It's
too
like-
too fit for strength training.
I'm like,
Like,
What? You're probably just kidding yourself.
Yeah.
But also, I think the biggest one would be like in these modules, like learning how to program it so it makes sense to that client. Like, and then you can give somebody aerobic conditioning in positions that they need to get better in. So then
Yeah.
you're making the most out of that period,
Yeah.
as opposed to like, especially powerlifters. Like, it's like, okay, cool. When we say cardio, you don't need to go like run. Actually,
Yeah.
do not run.
yeah,
do
yeah.
not
Please,
run.
please don't do that.
Please don't do that. But we can do heaps of stuff. Like you can do things like we do a lot of throws and stuff. And, we talked about planes motion previously. It's like, oh, how do I train the transverse plane? It's like get this medicine ball and throw it against the wall. Cool. If we do that in a circuit for like 20 minutes, A, it's more fun.
Yeah.
B, you're getting some aerobic work, and C, you're training a lot more rotation than you probably ever have in your life. So
Yeah.
tick, tick, tick.
Yeah.
The last thing I would add is just rationalizing the plan, like, and being able to explain that specificity. Like, I've got a powerlifter at the moment, and they're peaking, and it's like, we got to make weight, and I'm like, well, you need to do some aerobic work because you're not where you need to be weight wise, and we need to manage your energy balance. But you're doing 15 sets of training in a whole week probably. So it's like, we need to think about that. And they're like, oh, but what about recovery? And I'm like, yeah, but this is a totally different system that we're training that's not really going to cross over to your nervous system if we approach it this way.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if you do your cardio this way with these parameters and you can choose this, and that, you will expend energy, you will increase your aerobic capacity, and you won't affect your ability to get under the barbell. And then they were like,
Probably improve your recovery.
You probably recover better between.
and they were like, oh, that sounds like, because they were like, nah, let's not do this. And I'm like, no, let's do this. And then they were like, oh yeah, let's do this. The buy-in was there again, because I just think like work hard recovery, like it's going to affect everything, and I'm not going to do it.
Yes.
So I think
Even
if you
just-
understand the moving parts, you can get buy-in.
Even just
100%.
fucking going outside.
Yeah.
Like that
Apparently
late
it's
in a
good
prep.
for you.
Yeah, it's just like actually maybe go outside and go for a walk. Like we're humans. That's not going to ruin your recovery from your squats. It's okay.
No, I love that.
Fuck, man. Like I think 100 years ago we did a lot of hard shit.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's like surely we can just like fucking get under a barbell and then go and do stuff. Like,
Yeah.
It's like, oh no, I need to lie on the bed all day. It's like, fucking come on, harden up.
Yeah, exactly. It's like your whole session today was like 9 working sets. Like I know
Yeah.
they were hard, but I think you'll be okay.
Yeah.
So this could totally fall on its ass, and I know the podcast is long already, but I'm going to have a crack at it anyway.
We'll make it work. Yeah.
So Max and I are supposed to be discussing my program moving forward. So Max and I have not preempted this
Oh, this is
conversation.
good.
So I thought
we role play. Good.
maybe if we just looked at like what are the considerations we've talked about it this whole time.
Yep.
We've got a concurrent goal
Yep.
that is be strong, hit a what does it work out to be 6.5 times body weight total, and run. I don't know how fast yet because I've never tested it, but maybe sub 15, sub 14.
Yep.
Where do you go from there? What
Good
questions do you think about? I'm just going to keep
He
talking.
just
while
wanted to
you
get a
process.
consult with
Yeah, for
Carl
free.
here.
Yeah.
As well, just to make sure that if Max slips
This
up,
is actually
he's getting...
Carl's on him.
This is actually a good one. I mean, to be fair, anybody that signs up for coaching with Carla, right, like the other one kind of just comes as an added bonus because typically when I'm running programs, I'll be like, hey,
What do you think it is?
Or they'll ask me a question, and I'll have the answer like, oh yeah, that's what Max said. And I was like, yeah.
yeah, we are just the same person. No, so first, obviously, you got the goal. So sub 15 seconds, I think you said, for 100 meters. Have never run 100 meters before. No. So
Not since I was about 16.
yeah, good. And then we have pretty much so the goal for the total. So your squat was, did you have specific?
Yeah, so at least 2 times body weight for the squat, 1.5 for the bench, and then the deadlift is the only one that would go up, which would be a 3 times body weight dead.
Nice. And you are trying to lean out at the same time.
Until the wedding.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't matter.
Okay, which is
8 weeks away.
Yeah, 8 weeks.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So one of my first things, and this is just inexperience,
Yeah, I love it.
would be you've got 8 weeks to your wedding. Yep. So this would probably be when we're doing a building phase leading in, because as we all know, training is stress. Weddings are also stress. So I would be Carl's peak wedding stress at the moment. What are you, 4 or 5 weeks out?
4 or 5 weeks.
Ooh, yeah. Hey, you're not even near it, mate.
Yeah.
Trust me.
It's the last 2
Yeah.
weeks because that's when the invoices come.
That's a fellow married man.
Yeah.
It's like 2 weeks out, you're like, oh, yep, I guess.
Yeah, that's when you just like
just tap that card again, hey?
Yeah.
well, we spent this much. We may as well keep going. That's
Correct.
it,
Yeah, exactly.
And if we don't spend that, that's not worth it. 'cause that
it'll
looks
be shit. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
100%.
Days wrong.
That's what happened in the studio too.
It always happens.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just a side note. Always ask what your clients got going on. Yeah. So for 8 weeks, I would be probably focusing on a bit of a building phase. So I know as well, we previously did a bit of work around the running mechanics and just general running drills. So a big reason that we do that is Carl was talking about it before. Like we have that continuum, especially with things like the plyometrics. You probably wouldn't be thinking about it when you're doing it, but a lot of those running drills are plyometric in nature.
Yeah,
So we
makes sense.
are kind of building up some kind of tolerance and ability to absorb force, which is important. Because if you've never run before, it is actually a very taxing thing to do to run really fast. In terms of, the overall global load, but also calves, hammies, things like that. So I guess like one of my big questions is what's the reason for these goals? Like what happened for you to be like, I don't want to specifically do this. I want to have like a broader focus.
I probably got to where I wanted to in powerlifting.
Yep.
And had that kind of burnout feeling, like I had to train for a comp.
Yeah.
And I kind of lost the enjoyment factor of it. Like
Yep.
I was still progressing. I think maybe lockdown had a little bit to do with that.
Yeah,
Just
sure.
like, fuck, I have to train, and it's in my garage, and I haven't been anywhere else in fucking 2 years.
Yeah.
So that I think was a part of it. But yeah, I was just moving into this year. My number one priority is work.
Yeah.
Being able to be present and really good at my job is way more important to me than making nationals in powerlifting.
Yeah. Cool.
So the fitness element was part of it. Getting in shape for the wedding was part of it. Getting in shape to maybe start a family was part of it. And then I still like lifting heavy. So it was like, I want to kind of keep that in it. Because when I first looked at it, I was really pissed off at powerlifting. And I was like, I'm going to do fucking CrossFit and do handstand walks and shit. Now I'm like, no, running's fun and I just want to lift heavy as well.
Yeah, nice.
Yep.
Let's come back.
That's good.
Got him.
Reel him back.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. So it sounds to me as well that like enjoying the training process is important. Yeah, like you've got to a point where you didn't enjoy it anymore, and you kind of get to that point and go, well, why am I doing it if I'm not being fulfilled from it?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And then, yeah, obviously, lifestyle related. You said you want to start a family. I know when you have kids, you need to have the energy levels. You can't be.
I play with my niece and nephew, and it's like, I'm going to just hold on to this couch, and then I'm going to kneel down, and then I'm going to sit down. And then if I need to get up, someone's going to come and help.
Yeah, so movement quality. We'll put that under that blanket reason.
Yeah.
No, that sounds good. And I guess, did you have any ideas of timeline? Like when you go, I want to run 100 meters in 15 seconds. Like when are you thinking?
The running, I have no idea.
Yep.
Because I've never done it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I don't even have a baseline of to what is achievable. I wouldn't even know what I would run now if I went out.
Yeah.
But I think I think I could peak now and hit the squat and bench pretty comfortably.
Yep.
And the deadlifts maybe got 6 months of work in it.
Yeah, cool.
You could probably run now. You just wouldn't be able to stop. You just have to keep running until you hit the rail.
It'd be at 200 meters.
My first check-in with Max was, how long should it take me to slow down? Because I feel like I'm going to fall over. Should we do some deceleration?
I have fear of that just thinking about it. Like, I don't even know if I could stop.
So
mass in motion.
Little tangent. I know this episode's long, but little tangent. On New Year's Eve this year, one of my best mates is a marathon runner.
Yep.
And one of the other guys there was a footballer. And they were like, we're going to do a sprint. We're going to race each other.
Yeah.
All right, sweet. So everyone went out the front because there's only one way this can go at 11
Just
o'clock.
quick, sorry, side note. How many beers deep were you at this stage?
They were a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's why we all were, this is not going to go well.
Yeah.
So it was light pole to light pole.
Yep.
First one actually went pretty good. And I was a bit surprised. Like, obviously, doing the drills, I'm a little bit aware of what a good running technique looks like now. I was like, I'm impressed.
Yep.
Next one, my mate who's marathon runner, so not very fast, but like technically very, very sound.
Yes.
He beat him off the start line. So watching him run, the guy that was second was like looking at him. So you just saw him veer across the road, veer across the road, and he got speed wobbles.
Oh no!
And just full slide across the asphalt. Ripped up a tattoo, spun his head. Yeah, it was once he got up, it was very funny.
Yeah, it's that. Or do I laugh?
Yeah. It's like, nah, he's up. It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, we can laugh. It's all good. Yeah. Sorry for the tangent. Back to you, Max.
No, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, okay. So where were we before running that? Oh, timeline. Cool. So it's a long-term thing anyway. It's kind of the focus for, you said 2022. Focus for 2022 is business. Obviously, being present, coaching, potential family stuff, enjoying training, and then in that time frame, getting good at running, feeling healthier, moving well, and then at the same time being very strong. Yeah, awesome. So my thoughts would be, and you can just chime in, for the next 8 weeks, I would be introducing a little bit more of the running stuff, but also some additional aerobic work with a little bit more variety in it. So some of the more of the throws and stuff like that we've done previously, just to build a little bit of capacity, but then not to overload things from the running point of view.
Yep.
And then at the same time, I'd be thinking the strength stuff, we're just going to keep it like a minimum effective dose. Typically, like when we introduce something new, you would have known this, like when you do the running, you just pull up super sore, like a novel stimulus, something you're not used to. We just want to make sure we're keeping track of that. I'd also want you to have some flexibility with your schedule in the lead up to the wedding, especially like those 4 weeks in, right? It's like, I wouldn't want you to be like locked into 4 sessions a week because sometimes 4 sessions a week isn't going to happen. So having that kind of like 3 core sessions possibly, and then if you get time, here's like a fourth session, which is like a top up bonus session.
Yep.
Thoughts on that?
Yeah. Sounds awesome.
And I think we mentioned this previously, but when it comes to improving like the aerobic system, frequency is reasonably important. So doing like one 90-minute session is not equivalent to 3 30-minute sessions. That 330 is going to be a lot better. So we might even just tack on some sessions in there. So something like on a couple of those strength days, it's like, yeah, we're doing that strength work, but then post-strength work, that's when we can just add in an extra 15, 20 minutes of some conditioning stuff.
Yeah.
Sound good?
Sweet.
Awesome. And where are you going to be training?
Got the oval. So
Yep.
we can't get to a track because we can't figure out how to get the key. If anyone knows the Werribee Athletics track and can get us
They've
a key,
locked it.
that would be amazing.
Have they locked it?
We're just going to jump the fence. I think. We can't seem to
Some
get
wire
in there.
cutters?
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
the keys.
Because I think it's privately owned by the uni, so it's not a public track.
Makes sense.
Yeah. But yeah, so it'll be 5 days first thing in the morning available.
Yeah.
One of those days will be in the gym. The rest will be in the garage.
Yeah,
gym,
nice.
The oval.
Yeah, awesome. Because the other thing we could look at down the road is I would never want to take away the bro sessions.
I was just
thinking, I was like,
should
sounds
I
like I
mention
get to-
Friday?
I
Because
get to
Friday's
train,
our bro
uh,
sesh.
Yeah.
I get to train arms and shoulders on a Friday.
100%. 100%. It's important, especially for
Agreed.
that enjoyment factor.
Yeah.
And also, I think something that we've learned, like we talk about, like refining the wheel, like that old school S&C approach was like everything needs to be functional. Like we're both huge believers in like you can get a really good training stimulus by using machines. They're less taxing on the body, and everybody should use them if the situation calls for it. So like, yeah, I'd definitely be having like a Friday pump session, make it supersets, circuit based stuff like that, because then you can accumulate all that volume. So you're going to preserve muscle mass, stuff like that. But it's not going to be the same as like, you know, doing heaps of heavy sessions as well.
Yep.
And yeah, that should be a good way to get enough of a stimulus that you can retain mass. Without cooking the body.
Yeah, sweet.
Because your ability to handle as much volume with like straight compound lifts, that'll probably go down. But that's fine because we'll just pec deck for days.
Love it.
Oof.
Love it.
Yeah, sounds
The
good.
only
I might
other
join in on
variable
you.
is-
He's good.
That session, I might be second person in the pec deck. Even though
deck's
I've already
good.
trained chest, like it's just any chance to get a chest pump, I'm in.
100%. It's important for running mechanics, the pec deck.
Yeah. I think that gives a good insight into just like that initial conversation though. And then like how simple it actually is.
Yeah,
Like-
and obviously, like, I have a lot of the background knowledge already.
Yeah,
so
and-
that makes it a lot easier.
We're going to go into obviously more detail as well, like off camera and stuff. But I think that gives people listening an idea of like, oh, actually, this isn't that scary. I just need to weigh up what they've got going on in life, where they are in terms of an athlete, which you guys listen to the podcast probably know ish, where I'm at. So it's like, yeah, I think that's useful to look at and go, that actually wasn't that complicated, and
No,
maybe I
can be
do
done.
that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, like, I think this is good. Most of your clients, if you're listening to this, when they say they want to do something athletic, it's very rare that they want to change up absolutely everything that they're doing.
Yeah.
So typically, and that's what we want, like, after this course, we don't want you to change the way that you do absolutely everything, a la, as you mentioned with like the Pat Davidson, Jordan Chalet thing. Everyone's just like, I no longer do that.
Yeah.
We don't want that. We just want you to have more things that you can add on.
Yeah.
So like, if you've got a client that enjoys doing strength training and they enjoy physique training and stuff, but they just want to add in and they've got a goal like, oh, I'm going to go hiking in 12 weeks time, so it'd be good to prepare for it. It's like, yeah, cool. Just make like half of one of the sessions specific to that. Don't give them a 4-week completely different program. Like, you know, subtle changes are good.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I think we can say that the studio works.
Yeah, it's very comfy.
It's
Good
the
chat
longest-
forever.
The longest episode we've done in a very long time.
Yeah.
And I feel
You've
like
done well, guys.
I
That's
could
great.
nap in this.
I just
Yeah,
really
pretty
just
comfy.
at first just position. I was like, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
I don't need
Yeah.
to adjust.
We're gonna introduce like some more just like chat discussion based podcasts. Like I can see how like Rogan's go for like hours because
Yeah.
it's just like
So
let's get
easy.
some whiskey.
100%.
Yeah.
You know, maybe if we can smoke in here, we'll just get some cigars. Fuck it.
Imagine
Yeah. Every 3
Set it
months, we'll
alight.
just do like a quarterly cigar podcast.
Yeah.
3 hours in the conversation gets real weird.
Oh, it probably would.
It'd be good listening to.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
do like a wine cast. We all just talk shit about wine.
Yeah.
Now I'm in.
Yep.
I don't mind that idea.
Yeah.
There
So
we
if
go.
you
I'll
if
bring
you
the
just
platter.
listened to all of that, make sure you go and check out the YouTube channel because we spent heaps of money on this studio. We want people to look at it.
True.
Where do we find you boys? Websites, Instagrams, all of that jazz.
Yeah, everything. Pretty much you can find us through the Performance Hub.
Yeah.
So performancehub.com.au at performancehub_Melbourne.
I always have to think about it.
Yeah. Coach Karl T, Max Strength.
And our athletic stuff is more on impact performance.
Sweet.
Which you can link between the two. So
Yeah.
Once you land somewhere, you'll get them.
correct.
That's
You
it.
can't escape this. Once you
yeah.
follow one of
I love
us, you're getting it all.
Yeah.
Yeah. You'll find us at STCfit_learning, at Ben Scott STC, at Jason Galea _STC,
Beautiful.
www.stcfitlearning.com. You can find out about the course that we've been talking about for the last 2 hours as well on there. Just search for Coaches Collective, and that'll come up with the course that the boys are going to be part of in the 1%. I think that's it.
Yeah.
Sweet.
You'll be able to find the rest of it.
Yeah, everything will be there.
Awesome.
Thanks
for having us,
for
boys.
listening
Good
and
chat.
watching, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.